You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN, and now TSPN presents Love, Hope, and Faith with Heather Murdock.
Welcome to Love, Hope, and Faith with me, Heather Murdock, and I'm so delighted that you joined us today. I'm so excited for my show. I have an awesome guest today. I'm just going to not waste any time with any other business, but just get right to my guest. I have a great young man with me today. His name is Matt Robinson. Hi, Matt.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, good.
It's good to see you.
I'm very excited to be on here.
And we only have 12 minutes, so because you have to run to another appointment, so I kind of want to get right to the point here of who you are. So tell us who you are, because this is the first time you and I have met.
Yes.
But you are doing, you're going to be doing art for our Sutter Creek Nazarene Church. This week is doing Vacation Bible School, VBS. Yes. And you have been invited from Texas,
right? That's right, that's right.
Yeah, to come and do art, which is your ministry in working with the youth.
That's right,
So there's opportunity for our viewers to come and check you out, because you're an awesome artist at our church today and
yes.
Sunday, right?
That's right.
We'll talk more about that in a minute, but let's just talk about you.
Okay.
Tell me about yourself.
Definitely. I am from Houston, and I grew up in Houston.
Yeah.
And I grew up going to a church in our area, and since I was young, I believed in God and believed that I was going to heaven, and I knew...
Your parents were Christians?
Yes, my parents were Christians. They taught me, learned all about God through church.
Yeah.
And so I just always kind of believed in God. And I've always been drawing since I was a little kid too, and
like drawing like comics and things like that.
Yeah, just cartoons mostly, people, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just when I got into high school, just kind of got a little wayward into some addictions, but I kind of kept that a secret. But I still claim to believe in God.
So you're like living a double life, would that be fair to say?
Yes,
yeah,
definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
I think that is so common, and you told me a little bit about this off camera, and I really wanted to touch on that, because I think that's really, really common. You know, they're what you might call the Sunday Christians, people who go to church on Sunday.
Right.
They look right on the outside, but they're really living completely in sin and not like God calls us to live. And then there's isn't there a lot of shame in that too? That kind of drives you more to the addiction?
Right.
Yeah?
And what was funny, I would say, is that I said that I believed in God, and I didn't really know that there was an issue, or that the way that I was living and saying that I believed in God contradicted each other.
Yeah.
There was no red flags.
Right. Okay.
So it's kind of strange. And then when I was in high school, I went on a mission trip to Arlington, Texas. That was the first time I did ministry with kids. That's where I love to work with kids. And when I was a senior, when I was 18, I was on the mission trip, and that's where God opened my eyes and said that I didn't really know Him and that I wasn't really saved.
Okay, so I know what you mean, but I like to really clarify things for the viewers too.
Okay.
I have a mixed bag of people who watch the show. I have believers and non-believers.
Okay.
So I kind of wanted to know, what is it like to hear from God? What was that like for you, at least? Because we all have our own communication with Him. But what was that? How did He communicate that to you?
So I was up late talking with the youth pastor who took us on this mission trip, and we were talking about, he was talking about the cross and about Jesus, and I was telling him that I believed in God, but I'd been doing a lot of things that I knew that I shouldn't have been. So I felt like I was distant from God, like I didn't have a close relationship with Him. So I tried to do a lot of good things to get right with God again. And then the way that it played out, I mean, just in the middle of our conversation, I was just sitting there. It wasn't anything that the youth pastor said to me that it clicked. I was like, oh, okay. I just remember sitting there, and really there was just a sensation of just it was just like being hit in the face, or just bam, and there was just kind of this
truth.
Yeah, it was like this understanding where I perceived three things that God was communicating.
Okay.
And one of those things was that I didn't know Him and that I wasn't saved. So it was kind of just a sensation of just bam, doo-doo-doo, and it was just what God was saying. So sometimes it just, the way that He speaks is different and varies, but He is clear and He speaks to us.
Yeah, it just cuts right through. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, I've experienced that myself many times too.
Definitely.
So that was a startling revelation for you, I would imagine.
Yes, because that was the first time that I realized that I didn't have a relationship with God at all. And my whole life I thought I did.
So would it be fair to say that you had like your parents' relationship, or like a second-hand relationship with him? It wasn't like a first-hand personal relationship with him. It was like just going through the motions because that's how it was expected of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
That and like also just genuinely thinking that I was going to heaven.
Yeah.
Like I didn't understand that I was a sinner and was separated from God and that kind of thing. I really just thought I was going to heaven.
Yeah. How do you, I mean, I'm a parent of 3. We have a 19-year-old, we have a 11-year-old and an 8-year-old. And how do you recommend, as someone who's still young and works with kids, what do you recommend, how does a parent help a child have their own personal relationship with God? What could your parents have done differently? Anything, do you think? Or
I mean, I think they did a great job, like, teaching me about God and, like, answering questions and taking me to church and that kind of thing. So I wouldn't say that it was
a lack on their end.
anything on them or whatever, but I think it was just a blindness on my part because of sin. I mean, sin blinds us from knowing God.
Yeah.
But I would just say definitely continually praying for your kids, like all the time.
Yeah.
And just any time that you can teach them verses or the Bible or expose them to other Christians. And if there's any opportunities for even your child to get into ministry, because children can serve God too. And so that's really where God speaks to us a lot of the time. So
that's awesome. That's great advice.
Yeah.
So you had this moment or this revelation at the mission that you were at.
Yes.
And then what happened? Where did that take you?
Yeah. Well, it was a very like lights off, lights on kind of thing, just very like drastic change. And when I went home, like, I mean, just everything looked different, the way that kids in my school looked, and just seeing that they didn't know Jesus and I needed to tell them, and like I wanted to read the Bible and it started making sense.
Yeah.
And I just started meeting people and wanting to tell them about Jesus, wanting to work with kids.
Yeah.
I went to college in Savannah, Georgia, and got to start a kids ministry there.
Awesome.
And start one in Texas. So just being able to start ministries working with kids.
And so God, I mean, you knew then that the art that you had been doing your whole life, you knew that's what God wanted you to use in your ministry? Or how did that all kind of tie together?
Well, after I became a Christian, I knew, like, I'd always been told that art was a gift, and I was like, okay, it's a gift, I got it. And then when I became a Christian, I was like, okay, it's a gift that I need to use.
Yeah, good.
And then it wasn't really until after college that I started really combining, like, working with kids and art.
Yeah.
Like, and one of the main ways is using art to teach the Bible to the kids.
Awesome. Through cartoons,
Through
right?
cartooning, like cartooning and storytelling.
Yeah.
So drawing the picture while teaching the lesson.
I love it,
So
because kids are such visual learners.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And they love cartoons.
And they love cartoons. Yeah, and that's awesome. Okay, so I wish we could talk longer. I do want to get the viewers to see your website. So we're going to be showing your website during this segment, and because we want to see some of your art, and let people know where you're going to be and how they can see you. So where are you going to be tonight?
Tonight will be Sutter Creek Church of the Nazarene.
Yeah.
It's at 5:30. It's like a family fun night.
Yeah, free dinner and everything.
Free dinner.
Yeah.
Free dinner.
Free good dinner. Yeah.
Games, and then like kind of a worship service, and that's where I'll be speaking and doing an art piece there.
And we really encourage you guys in the community to come. Even if you haven't been at VBS all week, come tonight. It's family night. We just want people in the community to come and bring their families and enjoy free dinner and activities, and especially to see and hear you.
Yes.
What story are you going to be telling tonight?
I believe it'll be about Daniel.
Daniel, yeah.
That's what the week of VBS has been about.
My husband's playing Daniel in the drama.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I saw that yesterday.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
So, and then what's the next opportunity they can see you?
It'll be Sunday morning at the church. Sunday morning, the services are 8:30 and 11.
Yep.
And I'll just be doing an art piece during the worship service.
And do you know what you're going to be talking about during that time, the worship service?
That time I'll just be doing an art piece while the pastor is speaking and while like the music is going.
I love it. You know, I hear more and more about these big mega churches that use so many different mediums to convey the. In fact, there's even like pastors that are called creative pastors.
Yeah,
you know, that's all they do. You know, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a great gig?
Yeah, that would be pretty crazy.
Yeah. So really incorporating all those different visuals and dance even, and I love all that.
Yeah, I'd love seeing that. Definitely.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Definitely.
Well, we only have a couple minutes left, and I think they're showing your website now, which is cool, so the
Okay.
viewers can see that.
Awesome.
But I wanted to find out if you can just give me one thing to say, one pearl of wisdom about what it's like working with the youth, or how you relate to the youth.
Sure, sure.
Because they're our next, leaders.
Definitely, definitely. Well, excuse me, one thing I guess I've seen with kids, with small children, is that they soak in a lot more, I guess, than we realize, and they can understand a lot more. So I've been able to really talk to them about Jesus and about who he is, and just sort of like things that we would say deep things of God. And so I would say, don't be afraid to teach them about Jesus and to talk to them, and like they have a lot of good questions, and be ready to answer them and talk with them about them, because there's some pretty deep and hard questions that they have. So.
Yes, they are amazing questioners, and that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, because I think we do forget that kids can understand a lot more than we think.
Yeah,
Definitely. Especially as parents, we try to keep it so simple, which is good, but
yeah,
kids
simple is good.
Yeah, but kids are capable of, through the Holy Spirit, right,
Yes,
of understanding.
definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
a lot more. So I can tell you have a passion for kids, and that's awesome that you're using your gifts to help
Yes,
them and to lead them into Christ.
Yeah, thank God for that. So.
Yeah. Well, you're a blessing, and we appreciate you being on. I appreciate you being on today, and
Thank you.
I know I'm really looking forward to seeing you tonight
Awesome.
too. Yeah.
Awesome.
So you guys definitely go check Matt out tonight at the Church of I can't talk. Church of the Nazarene, my church, at 5:30 tonight. Free dinner, games, Matt. It's going to be a great night. Come bring the family. And when we come back, I'll be talking more about how to deal with kids and how to work with kids in their faith and how to lead kids. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're watching your local television network, TSPN, and now back to Love, Hope, and Faith with Heather Murdock.
Welcome back. And Matt was such a fun guest, and he had to run off because he has to be on stage at 9 o'clock at the VBS at the church to meet the kids. So he had to run off. But I just figured I would talk more about kids today because Matt kind of set that tone and set the topic for me. And I wanted to share with you what's been happening in our family with our kids, and really encourage you about some books I've been reading and some information I have to share with you today about how to raise kids. And I am so not the expert. I mean, I make mistakes every day, and but I'm always, desiring to learn more about how to raise my kids and how to discipline them and how to bring out their purpose. As you know, and as I believe so fervently, that we are here for a purpose. Each one of us is made for a purpose. It's like each one of us is a blank piece of paper, and God, starts with that and then creates a masterpiece. And the masterpiece is for a purpose. And so how do we as parents nurture that? Our kids have different personality types, and sometimes our kids share our personality, but many times, pardon me, if you're like me, my kids are very different from me, and also very different from each other. And so how do you discipline and nurture and help develop your kids to be that purpose that they're made to be? Because I think the danger is that we try to fit our kids into the norm. We try to fit our kids into the norm of, we look at everyone else and we look at other families and the way that we have our expectations about our kids, and maybe our kids aren't meant to be within our expectations. Maybe our kids are not meant to be conforming to what we think they're meant to be. I want to find out what God wants my kids to be, what He made them to be. And I think sometimes also there's a danger in living through our kids. I think there's a danger sometimes, and maybe there's things that we missed out on in our youth, or dreams that we had that were never fulfilled, and we see those potentials in our kids. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing to obviously to see greatness in our kids. We want that. But there is a danger in living through our kids vicariously and putting that pressure on them to live our dream, not their dream. So our family has been going through quite a bit with our daughter, especially. I was going to say our kids, but mostly our daughter. My daughter, she's amazing, wonderful, wonderful young woman, 11 years old, and just beginning to be this young woman. And she has struggled in school, and not for lack of intelligence, but just her thinking style, her learning style, the way that she understands and absorbs information is different than the status quo. And I know there's many parents out there who are relating with what I'm saying. It's becoming more common, I think, that the kids are not fitting in with the status quo in terms of learning. And I just have to say before I even go on that the school that my kids have gone to their whole life is wonderful. It's a fabulous school with very caring people, very caring teachers, wonderful principals, just great. So I have no negativity about the school at all. It's just that our daughter doesn't fit into the public way of teaching. That's it. And she's been struggling. She's been struggling, you know, every year. And next year she's going into 6th grade. And so this is just our family's choice. We have decided, we have prayed about this, and we have, prayed year after year. God, show us how to teach our daughter. Show us the answer. Show us how to help our daughter. Because every year as she struggles more, her self-esteem, you know, suffers. Her self-esteem is starting to really suffer. I mean, being 11 years old and going into junior high is hard enough just with that. Just being in junior high, that's hello. Junior high was like my worst years ever. But to add a learning challenge, could I say, on top of that, it just makes it so much worse. So we have decided that we are going to be trying homeschool for a year next year. Now, I just have to say that God has such a sense of humor. I mean, He literally has a great sense of humor, because I remember saying fiercely that I would never homeschool my kids. I could never. I don't have the patience for it, nor do I want to do it. Like, I could never homeschool my kids. I've just always said that. And I've admired, though, other families that have taken that choice. Yet here we are, and God's laughing, because here we are homeschooling our kids. And like I said, this is not a political decision. It's not because we're anti-establishment or anything like that. This is a personal choice we've made because, as you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting different results. And that's what we've been doing. We've been on this treadmill, on this hamster wheel, doing the same thing year after year and getting the same results. And so we've decided that we need to do something different. And you know, it's interesting how God works, because as we've been praying as a family, and literally, you guys, my daughter, I mean, sometimes at night I'll just hold her and she'll just be crying, you know, literally. Mom, if I wasn't so stupid, if I wasn't so dumb, how come I can't get it? I wish I was like my brother. You know, her brother gets things very easily. I wish I was like, you know, so-and-so. And it just, as a parent, it just breaks your heart to hear your child comparing themselves to other people and seeing themselves as less than. It's like, it's just heartbreaking. And I just keep encouraging her that, you know, that God will use this. She has now this extra sensitivity, and she has this huge heart, and this huge kind heart, and this extra sensitivity to people who struggle, and God will use that for good. I promise her. I know He will use this for good. Who knows what she'll do when she's older? Maybe she'll be some amazing, innovative educator. Maybe she'll be a counselor. I mean, she has that empathy and sensitivity to people because of the struggle she's had. And so, as a blessing in this whole thing, as a result of this, Lily has really developed her own personal relationship with Jesus. And kind of like what I was talking about with Matt in the first segment, you know, how do you get your kids to have their personal relationship? Because as Christian parents, we're like teaching our kids about the Bible, and we have our guidelines and you know, the ways that we raise our families. But how do you teach your kids to have that own personal relationship where they know God is real? You know, that's a challenge. And as a result of Lily's struggle, she has that personal relationship with God, and it's a beautiful thing to see. I mean, she goes to Him in prayer when she's struggling on a test, or you know, when she's feeling down on herself. She goes to Him on her own. We pray together. When she's crying, we pray as a family, you know, together about, you know, asking God to guide us, asking God to help us lead Lily, to help Lily, to show her the way, to show her the path that He has made just for her. And so it's been really cool in that respect to share that with Lily. That's my daughter. I shouldn't say names. But anyway, that's my daughter. To share that with her and to really watch her relationship with God grow. So I'm so appreciative of that and feel blessed by that. But, I should say, the fact remains is that there's still struggle. And as we begin to realize that maybe the public school system was not the best fit for our daughter, it's like all of a sudden one person after the other is starting to witness to us, to share with us about their homeschool experience. And my husband, I was talking to our youth pastor, Darlene Franks, she's a good friend of our family, sharing this with her and sharing my concerns. And Dar, we just don't know what to do. And Dar, do you have any advice? And maybe she can go into Christian school, private school, and Dar is talking about this certain curriculum in a homeschool. And then I call my husband on the way home, and I'm excited, and I'm like, I think maybe this is what we should be doing. And he's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Right now, as you're calling me, he was sitting at home. As he was calling me, he was sitting at the home of some of our other friends, and their whole family, their kids and the parents were all sharing with my husband and our 2 kids about how awesome their homeschool curriculum is and what a blessing it's been, and how they have excelled in it. And these kids are just wonderful, dynamic kids, great communicators, self-confident, and totally into their independent studies. And so, I don't know, it is just, I feel that God's really leading us right now in this direction. So last night I went to a homeschool open house event over in Rancho Murrieta and learned about the different homeschools. And it's a huge, big world. And I don't know if we're going to continue with it. I have no idea. Right now our goal is to try it for a year. I have no idea if it's going to be something that we're going to do year after year. I'm really my husband and I are really going to God each day and praying for direction and His guidance. And if He calls us to continue, we will. And if He calls us to just try it and then go back into the public school system, we will. But there's a tremendous peace I feel now. I felt like I felt so like at a loss. And there's just no joy in feeling that way, and I didn't feel peace with struggling every year with what to do with our daughter. And now that we've made this decision, I feel so at peace. I feel so like we're in control, and I feel really optimistic about the opportunities that are going to exist in this new adventure that we're on. And the cool thing is that I work full time outside the home, and my husband has his own business where he works mostly from the home. So really, my husband is going to be the one doing the majority of the homeschooling. So it's a little bit different because usually it's the moms. And I think that God's ordained this to be this way because my husband has a wonderful, patient temperament. I mean, I'm patient and I love my kids more than anything, but my daughter and I do have that headstrong, strong-willed clashing sometimes, and homework can be like World War III. I'm ashamed to say, but it's going to be great because I get to be a part of it. But he'll be the primary, and so I'm really looking forward to what God's going to show our family. And homeschool is not for everybody. Like I said in the beginning, I'm not saying that public school is not good. Public school is amazing. It's just for our situation, this is the right choice for our family. So when we come back from break, I want to share with you some other information I've been learning about how to raise strong-willed children, because I do have one of those. So we're going to take a 3-minute break, and we'll come right back.
You're watching your local television network, TSPN, and now back to Love, Hope, and Faith with Heather Murdock.
Thanks for coming back today. And I wanted to share with you, I have so many things to talk about with kids, with raising families. And I know it's a common denominator. There's so many of us out there who are raising kids, obviously. And there's so many struggles, and I just feel like it's so good to be able to share those struggles and just to know that we're not alone in the mistakes we make, or in the struggles that we have, or the blessings, or the just the high times, just the wonderful moments, the parenting moments that are just that fill your heart to overflowing with love. And there's just being a parent, I mean, it's just like nothing I've ever experienced. And one of the keys that I learned, that I first realized when my daughter was first born, is that my daughter, having my first child, really enabled me to, or empowered me to, step outside myself and stop making it about me. I don't know if that makes sense, but you know, my whole life, I didn't have kids until I was 30. So I had, you know, quite a few years in my 20s of doing my own thing and partying and living the wild life and living life on my terms. And, you know, it sounds great. And, you know, I thought I was having a great time. But really there was a lot of selfish times, too. A lot of times where I was just selfishly living for what I wanted. And you know, a lot of times of feeling pretty empty inside and wanting meaning and purpose in my life. And when I first had my daughter, I remember the first day we brought her home from the hospital, and it was in April, the beginning of April, and she, you know, wow, from the moment she was born, she's just been full of it. I don't know if you have one of those at home, or maybe several at home, and they're just, you know, they're like, world, here I am, and I'm going to conquer it. And that was our daughter. And we brought her home from the hospital. We get in the car, and it had been raining, but it was starting to clear up. And I looked outside the window, driving in the car, and there is not only one beautiful, brilliant rainbow, but two beautiful, brilliant rainbows, a double rainbow. And I wrote that in her baby book. To me, that was a huge sign that, wow, this is a special day indeed, that that God provided this beautiful double rainbow to welcome our new baby home, and it was awesome. But I remember going home and sitting in the nursery and sitting in an old rocking chair I had and just turning off the lights and turning on the little night lights that we had and just sitting there with her and rocking her and just staring down at her and just crying with joy. And just, I mean, I can get emotional just thinking about that time. It was just like, wow, look at this little angel that we've been given and that we're responsible for. And I remember thinking, God, thank you. And I didn't really know God then, although I've always believed in some kind of God. You know, but it wasn't Jesus, but it was God. And I just remember thanking God and just that I don't feel worthy to have such a beautiful, special baby. You know, and I just, God, please help me be the mom help me be a good mom, you know. And I was somewhat scared too, you know. It felt like a really big responsibility, but it was also so joyful. And I remember just saying, wow, it's not about me anymore. Which is a good thing, you know, it's a good thing. And just knowing that now my life is about them. Now my life is about her and my family. And it was such a special moment. And as our daughter grew, you know, she really was a very sensitive child. She was very sensitive as a toddler. She was very sensitive to certain kind of fabrics on her skin, very sensitive, and she would get angry or upset or agitated if certain things, like if there was a tag in the back of the shirt that bothered her, and you know, things like that. She seemed very sensitive. She went through a colicky period where she was very colicky, and I remember, so here we have this beautiful, precious newborn moment, and then fast forward to just a few weeks later, and now here's my husband and I literally several nights staying up, like sharing shifts throughout the night so that we could stay up all night with this crying baby and like not knowing what to do, like feeling like, what are we doing wrong? Like as a mom, I'm feeling like, what am I doing wrong? Why won't she stop crying? And of course I was nursing and all that, and that didn't seem to interest her. Nothing would soothe her. Nothing would calm her down. And I was like, I'm a failure. I mean, and that's one of the things I wanted to share, you know, so other moms out there maybe who are new moms or who have gone through this will know that I think it's common when we have a child that is more sensitive and maybe more needy and just more, you know, you feel like, wow, what am I doing wrong? I'm a failure. I'm a terrible parent, you know. And then that emotion, that anxiety that you have, I think that I had, I think it made her more anxious herself. So here we are, mother and child, kind of feeding off of each other's emotions. I remember hearing a really neat quote years ago from a psychologist. I can't remember the name of the psychologist, but it was in a book, and they made this really just simple statement that was said so much to me, that our children swim in the emotion of our lives. I mean, just think about that for a minute. Our children swim, so imagine if our life is like an ocean, okay, and our emotions are the ocean. Our kids are swimming in that. So any emotion that we're feeling, they're feeling, and we think that we're hiding that from them, or that no one's noticing what the anxiety or fear or anger that we're feeling, and they are. Kids are so sensitive, and so here we are with this little baby, And she's swimming in the emotion of my life, and my life was filled with anxiety and feeling like a failure. And I was making her feel that way, or not feel like a failure, but I was making her feel that anxiety as well. And so the situation would just escalate. And it was like, it was very frustrating. And then as Lily began to be a toddler, you know, just such a witty child and so full of curiosity and just loved to have fun, you know, just a really high play drive that she had. On the other side of the coin, she was also the kid in Walmart who would throw the fit and yell and scream and pound her fists on the floor and lay on the floor. She'll probably kill me for sharing that, but I just have to share it. She was one of those kids who was just very kind of extreme one way or the other. And I remember when my husband, we had our son 2.5 years later, so Lily's 2.5 at this point. And I was a full-time working mom to add more complications to it. So then you have the mom guilt of, you know, of working and not being there enough for your kids, and then when you get home, the child is a little more needy and demanding, probably because they miss you, right? And so you're dealing with this constant cycle all the time, and it can be really challenging. And I think the mom, especially, and probably dads too, but I think more so moms, because the children came from us, we feel like it's some lack on our part, like we've done something wrong, like we're not a good mom, like we're, you know, we just have that guilt, that shame. At least I did. And so I remember bringing my son home, and Lily was so excited to have a brother one moment. And one moment she was looking at him through narrowed eyes, like, who is this and when is he going home? And you know, she definitely felt threatened in some ways and joyful the next. It was funny. But I remember one day, our son was probably just a week or two old. My husband had taken a week off, but now he was back at work, and Lily was in her terrible twos, and I'm here by myself at home with the kids, both kids, newborn baby and terrible twos, and they're both, Luke's you know, screaming because Lily woke him up because she was mad about something, and she starts throwing a fit, bless her heart. And I remember I went outside and I just bawled. I had Luke in his bassinet, and I had Lily in her high chair. She was mad about something, and I just went outside on the front porch and just bawled. And I just felt so helpless. Like, how am I going to do this? And I remember I called my husband from my cell phone, crying like a baby, like an idiot, and just telling him, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. You have to come home. I can't do this. I'm not a good mom. I can't handle this. And as I'm saying these words, I'm like listening to myself thinking, millions of moms around the world have multiple children, you know, and they're doing it and they're successful. What's wrong with me, you know? And I just, you know, I don't know if you've ever felt that way, but I really wanted to just share that because those were moments that really stuck out in my mind of feeling like I like alone, you know, as a mom. And I just want you to know, if you feel those ways, that you're not alone, and to talk it out. You know, the best thing I could have done was call my husband, because he's a very sweet, sensitive man, and he was really able to talk me off that ledge. You know, he was really able to empathize, first of all, and just kind of soothe me and encourage me, and just really help me get out of that. And like 5 minutes later, I was able just to go in the house and take a fresh breath and just take care of business. And really what I remember doing in that moment was going in, and my emotion had changed. I went from feeling frustrated and anxious and irritated and overwhelmed, that's a key thing, feeling overwhelmed, to going in there with a fresh mindset, with the ability to look at things with new eyes. And nothing had changed. I mean, Lily was still upset, Luke was still crying, but I was able to have a different mindset myself. And I think so many times in life, it's all about how we're viewing the situation. I was viewing it through overwhelmed eyes the first time. Going back into the moment, into that same moment, I felt refreshed, I felt revived, I felt encouraged, I felt capable. And I was able to meet the demands or the needs or the challenges with new tools. And so much of life is about our mindset. So much of life is about how we view the situation, whether we're parenting or whether we're in conflict with loved ones or whether we're at work with coworkers or any kind of challenge. It's all about how we view things. Are we viewing it with a mindset of defeat, of you know, challenge, frustration, anger, irritation, out of control, overwhelmed, all those things? Or are we viewing the situation as an opportunity to learn and to grow and to look for the win-win between people, whether it's your kids or you, or like I said, your life? So, and with your kids, you can't always look for the win-win. There's times, many times, where as a child, they need to do what you're telling them to do. You know, that you're going to win, they're going to lose, especially when it comes to safety concerns and things like that, or principles that are non-negotiable. Those are moments when you have to set the parameters and there's no deviating. The child cannot, no, they can't go run and play in the highway. No, not going to happen. You know, that's a win-lose situation. But there's also many times in raising our kids that we can look for the win-win and offer our kids choices. And that's what I learned, and I'm still learning with my kids, is how to parent with authority, but also offering choices and empowering them to be who God made them to be. So, as I said, I don't have all the answers. I'm still learning, so please know I'm not the expert, but I wanted to share today. When I come back, I'm going to share from a wonderful book that I've read called You Can't Make Me. And it's about strong-willed children, because guess what? Yes, my daughter is a strong-willed child. And this is a wonderful book. It is a Christian author. And just this book is a treasure. And so I'm going to read some things from this book today on the last segment here. And I do hope you come back. Thank you.
You're watching your local television network, TSPN, and now back to Love, Hope, and Faith with Heather Murdock.
Hello, and thank you for coming back. It's great to be with you today. Thanks for tuning in every week. I'm so grateful and just so thrilled at the opportunity to do this show every week. And every week I get to do it, I feel like it's a blessing. And every week I get to do it, I just say thank you to God and thank you to Tom and Sue, who allow me to have this show. They're awesome people, and I really am grateful. So anyway, so I wanted to share with you before we went to break, I don't know if the camera can see it, it's called You Can't Make Me. And it's by Cynthia Ulrich Tobias. Her last name is spelled Tobias. So again, that's Cynthia Ulrich Tobias, and it's called You Can't Make Me. Well, that's the main title. You Can't Make Me, but I Can Be Persuaded. And I remember, because we've had, like I said, a strong-willed child from day one, I've been reading a lot, trying to figure out how to raise this type of personality. And I remember I'd read the book by James Dobson called The Strong-Willed Child, and I'm going to lovingly call the Strong-Willed Child SWC, which is how she refers to it in this book. That's the acronym for Strong-Willed Child. So here I have my own SWC, and I remember reading The Strong-Willed Child by James Dobson. He's a Christian doctor, pediatrician, and child psychologist, and author, and all that. And it was a great book, a really, really great book. And many other books have come about as a result of his writing that book. And this is one of them. And I remember, I think the author was on Good Morning America, or one of those morning talk shows, and I really liked what she had to say. At that time, like I said, I was not a Christian, and this is a Christian author. She includes scripture in the beginning of each chapter, which I love. But I remember I bought the book because I was so impressed with her on the show, and thought, oh my gosh, that sounds like my daughter. And so I bought it, but then I never ended up reading it. I remember I skimmed through it, and but never really read it for whatever reason. And so about, let's see, Lily's 11. So about 2 years ago, I went over to a friend's house. And after a big, huge blowout with my daughter, after a lot of blowouts with my daughter, she'd been going, it seemed like sometimes strong-willed children go through times of being more independent and more demanding and more strong-willed than other times. And this was a time that Lily, we were going through a lot of change in our family, and usually the SWC is a child who doesn't really like a lot of change, because they're controlling. They like things the way they want them, and that's the way they are. So we had just moved. We moved in with my mother-in-law, in fact. So it was not quite 2 years ago. And that's a big change, and we all dealt with change in our own way. One of the ways that Lily dealt with it was by being just more, brought out more of her strong-willedness. And so I remember, oh my gosh, we had been going through some battles. She was just so defiant. Even when my husband would step in, she was like, when Dad steps in, and we don't spank anymore, although we did used to spank our children, but we don't spank Lily, and she's too old for that now, in my opinion. But I was tempted, but you don't want to spank in anger anyway. You know what I'm saying? You want to spank as a choice you're making, not as a reaction that you're giving. But do you like how I did that? Anyway, but she was so, you know, even when Vince would engage with her, she was just would not back down. I mean, you know, the thundering, now Dad's involved and you will do this and you won't talk to your mother that way. She was like not backing down. She was like not intimidated by him at all. And it had just been a long week of just going through these battles with her and just like literally praying, God, what are we doing wrong? How do we deal with this? We can't let her be disobedient. How do we fix this? So I went to my friend's house, one of my best friends, and I was just venting. You know, it's so nice to have your mom friends who you can just vent to and be real with. And so here I am just venting and just like, what do we do? I have no idea. And, you know, I said, honestly, the way she was acting, I told my friend, I said, I just feel like she's going to end up in jail someday because she has no respect for authority. Like, where is she going to end up? How is she going to turn out? Like, I'm clueless. It's just helpless. And and she was listening, a great listener, and gave me advice here and there. And then she said, you know, Heather, several years ago, you recommended a book to me. Pardon me. And she said, and I don't know if you ever ended up reading it, but you recommended it to me, and I read it, and it helped me so much, and it was this book. So here I had recommended it to a friend who had read it, and it just was like, changed her parenting life, yet I hadn't read it. I go home, and there it is right on my bookshelf, at the bottom of my bookshelf, just waiting for me to read. It had been there all along. You know, if I had just read it, I would have already had these tools. But I really encourage you. I don't know, it may be sold, I'm not sure if it's sold at the Christian bookstore, but I have seen it like at Walmart, and you can buy it definitely from Amazon.com. So definitely, if you're struggling with a strong-willed child, even if you're not a Christian, because these are just good, solid parenting principles about dealing with strong-willed kids. And it says strategies for bringing out the best in your strong-willed child. And isn't that what we want? I mean, if your child has that temperament, we need to, you know, we as parents, we need to find ways to redirect, yet still nurture that strong-willedness, because I've been told by professionals that, and in reading this book too, that strong-willed children are really a blessing if we can learn how to navigate through their personalities. Because they are the ones, they're you know, nonconformists at heart, and they're the ones who are going to be innovators. They're the ones who are going to go out and do great things. Not that other kids won't do great things, don't get me wrong, but strong-willed children are the ones who are going to stand up and say, why do we have to do it this way? Let's do it that way. They're leaders. They're leaders. And I can be strong-willed too. I wasn't strong-willed as a child at all. I was very malleable. As a child, I was a people pleaser. I was very shy, painfully shy. I've shared that before. I just wanted to please people. I wanted to make people happy. So I was not like this at all. But as I've grown into a woman, I've become more strong-willed, more of a leader. But my daughter, she's strong-willed right from the gate, a leader right from the gate. So it was just so, let me just read you some of the chapters that are in this book so you can kind of know where it's going. Who is the strong-willed child? How do I build a positive relationship with my strong-willed child? How do I motivate my strong-willed child? So what's the big deal about school? Because, there we go. Here I shared with you our challenges with our daughter in school. When you have a child who is strong-willed, and also who maybe struggles in the conventional school way, homework and learning and AR points and all those things are just going to be World War III in your household. The chances are they're not going to like school because they're not in control, right? So so what's the big deal about school? So it teaches you how to deal with that aspect. How can I best discipline my strong-willed child? Oh my gosh, that was such a helpful chapter. Finding the right career. What will they do with the rest of their lives? Remember how I told you that I was so concerned, like, how's she going to turn out? You know, she's going to be in jail. I mean, I'm being dramatic, but, you know, she's not going to be able to hold down a job because, you know, she will never take a boss's orders, you know, things like that. What about the line between right and wrong? When should I do something drastic? Is it ever too late? Oh my gosh, this is such an encouraging chapter. Is it ever too late? Because sometimes you feel like they're done already. I mean, a lot of experts say that between 1 and 5, they form who they're going to be. So you're feeling like, oh my gosh, if your child's beyond that, they're who they're going to be, and it's just too late. It's not too late. It's never too late. And that was a wonderful chapter. And then the last word, and that's where she has some more notes and then some recommended resources. So here's a little, I want to read this little story. Okay, this may sound, maybe you can't identify exactly with the story, but you'll get a glimpse of your child, I bet, if you have one of these, through this story. So it says here, Richard loved football, but he didn't much care for studying. By his junior year in high school, his grades were so poor that his diploma was in jeopardy. His parents, it seemed, had tried everything, threats, bribes, promises, all to no avail. In desperation, Richard's father issued an ultimatum. Been there. Richard, if you don't get good grades, if you don't get your grades up immediately, you can't play football. And this boy, who loved football as much as life itself, squared his shoulders, faced his dad, and quietly said, then forget football. And everyone lost. There's the lose-lose, okay? We talked about the win-win. Now we're talking about the lose-lose. Richard lost because he gave up his football that he loved, and the father lost because the ultimatum didn't work. Richard lost what he cared about most, and his parents lost what they believed was their only leverage. Here's another one. This reminded me of my daughter. She was such an adorable little girl. Angela, her mother sounded exasperated. Angela! Angela, I said get over here right this minute. This is me in Walmart. Standing in the aisle of the department store, I watched the face of this beautiful 5-year-old suddenly darken into an angry scowl. No, she cried. I want to go see the toys now. Her mother looked exhausted as she grabbed Angela's hand and began to drag her screaming daughter through the store. As they passed me, I saw the mother's eyes roll upward as she muttered, just another ordinary day. If you can relate to this, you got to get this book. I don't have time today to cover all the tools that are in this book, but a lot of this book is about choices, but the choices that you can live with. Because I think many times, well, I've done this before. If you don't, pick up the toys off your floor, I'm tired of asking you to pick up the toys. You're 11 years old. You should know to pick up the toys and put them away when you're finished with them, right? Okay, then they don't do it. If you don't do it, I'm throwing away everything on the floor. Okay, really, am I going to be able to do that? Is that really an ultimatum that I can live with? Does that mean I'm going to throw away all their toys and they won't have anything, all the toys that we spent money on, the things that they got for gifts? I mean, am I really going to live with that? Maybe you can. Maybe that is something legitimately that you can say and do. But the bottom line is we need to offer choices that we can live with and follow through on. But there's many more encouragements talking about how to really, kids really respond more to the relationship they have with us than anything else. And that was really what I got out of this book, that kids, especially strong-willed children, they get negative feedback so often because we're trying so hard to keep them in our boundaries, that they're really getting a lot of negative feedback more often than not. Don't do this, don't do that. Why do you have to act this way? I told you not to do that. Why do you have to exasperate me? These are the things that these kids commonly hear. So even though they don't show it, their self-esteem is really suffering. Inside, even though they're strong-willed and they would never show you, they are suffering. They are feeling like unloved. And this book really showed me how to have that relationship, preserve the relationship while still maintaining the authority figure, to be the parent. And it's really about the friendship. And when your kids know that you love spending time with them, when they know that you love, their company and that you just can't wait to see with them and you like them as people, when our kids know that we love who they are as people, they're much more willing, especially the strong-willed ones, they're much more willing to be negotiable with us. And that's it. I'm actually running out of time. I didn't even have time to read my devotional today. I hope this day blessed you. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next Wednesday.
You're watching Amador County's #1 news and sports leader, TSPN.